Welcome to Board Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite-sized, bingeable board game content from across the industry. I am your host, James Staley, and in this episode, we are welcoming back Richard MacRae, owner of Analog Game Studios. Analog Game Studios works with developers around the world to bring new and exciting games to the game table. Today, we're going to talk about their newest title on Kickstarter, Torus. Richard, welcome back to the Binge, my friend. How are you doing?
Hey, thanks, James. It is really great to be back, and thank you for having me.
It is always awesome to have you on here. As many people know, I look to you as a mentor. You've helped me a lot when I was cutting my teeth in this industry. You're a wealth of knowledge. You're very kind with your time if anybody has questions. And just off the top, I just want to thank you for that. I also want to thank you for a donation that you just did. We actually have our 100th episode coming up on June 14th, 100 episodes of the podcast. I can't believe that we've almost hit 100 episodes in under a year. Richard was very, very kind on behalf of Analog Game Studios to donate a copy of Cartosaura, which is their last Kickstarter that funded. And so that giveaway is actually happening right now. So if someone goes to our Instagram page, Board Game Binge Podcast, that's Board Game Binge Podcast, you'll see in there is simply, I think you have to tag like 3 friends. You follow us, you follow Analog Game Studios, get entered into the draw. We're going to do this every single day. We're adding another game. We've got 14 different companies that have been very generous, like Richard, with their donations. And we got a lot of exciting stuff coming up over the next week and a bit. So stay tuned for that. Richard, you got this new game called Torus. I've been following this for quite some time under another name, CTOR, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But how did you kind of meet up with, I guess Dr. Braun is the individual that invented this, right?
Yeah, a mutual friend introduced us, and the fellow actually worked at Snakes and Lattes. And said, hey, this game designer has this interesting game. And I had only done Centrix and Gnomes at Midnight by that point. I was working, I had some others in the pipeline. So I met with him, and it was a very intriguing game.
And this was like a few years, because I remember you talking about this a few years. You've been working on this for a while, have you not?
Yeah, I mean, any game that we do has about a 2-year pipeline development period. So yeah.
That's cool. So Dr. Braun, so tell me about this gentleman. So he's a Russian scientist, I guess, yeah?
Yeah, he was a professor at St. Petersburg at the university, a mathematician, a really, brainy, brilliant guy.
Yeah.
His job there was developing very sophisticated algorithms for kind of pretty much anything. And he was teaching mathematical theory to biology students, but he was having a hard time getting across his very theoretical environment to, biology students who are very grounded in the practical and sort of organisms impacting on each other, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he needed a teaching tool. And in particular, there was something called boundary conditions in algorithms that you have to have a situation where you can show the interaction between different, I guess, organisms or, biology interactions. And when you come to an edge, the world stops. So that's no good. You need a 3D kind of ish environment, but not a 3D environment in the sense of things stacked on top of each other. So his kind of donut shape, the torus, solved that problem, and he was able to use the system to teach mathematical theory to biology students.
So when you say like 3D but in like a 2D space, do you mean like kind of when you go off the edge, you kind of wrap around almost like Pac-Man and come in on the other side of the board? Is that kind of the general idea, or? Yeah,
exactly. Precisely, like in the diagrams that you can actually see in some places online and on our Kickstarter page, imagine you've got a donut.
Yeah.
Chop the donut in half, and then you unfurl it into a tube.
Mm-hmm.
And then you chop that tube in half, as it were, and you unfurl it into that flat board. The video describes or shows that exactly. But
I
that's the
see.
3D nature of it. So you can move around on the axis, and as you said, like Pac-Man, you come off the board, but you show up on the other side.
So, and then, so he created this game, he called it CTOR. So that stands again for,
Cellular Torus, yeah.
so this is like a biological concept. And so what year did he create this? I get the sense this has been around for a while. Like, is this something that's been going for a few decades or?
A little over 30 years ago, he came up with this.
Wow. And then this was with his different students, I guess. They, they would play it. And at what point did he see this as not just a teaching tool, but actually turn into something, literally it became a game, right? A game that then could be sold around the world and for other people to enjoy beyond his students. How did that transition happen?
Sure. I mean, any university environment, there's gaming groups, there's people who like to play games, right? And especially super smart people want to play really difficult games. In Russia, chess is huge.
Yeah.
But even Go is pretty big as a abstract strategy game. There were people who took this thing on and decided this is kind of cool, and it's also very challenging to play. So he developed these rules that allow you now to play through and try to dominate the board, take over the board and own it, as it were, but by flipping your opponent's pieces. Mm-hmm. And it was very successful. It led to CTOR groups that would play this game. There was even a newsletter, a blog of some sort that was written up by, who was winning and who was on kind of the
like
champion,
leaderboard
the
or
grand champion of it, yeah. And eventually, even an international championship developed out of it. So he published the game, and the game actually originally then sold over 100,000 copies.
100,000 copies. So, and when did he do that? Like, was that like 20 years ago, or is that more recently, or when did he do this?
No, pretty shortly after he had invented it back 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Like within a few years after that is when he first did publish it, but in Russia, right?
Yeah.
So this is the reboot, the recreation of it, but for USA and Canada.
So did he eventually like immigrate to Canada or to the US, or is he still like, how are you connected with him now?
Yeah, now he lives in Toronto. He's just another resident like you and me here in Canada.
Is he teaching here, or is he kind of gone the game route, or what's his?
I know he's in the media space. So Russian community broadcasting, actually.
Okay. Yeah, I gotta say it was, especially with like Netflix shows right now, like The Queen's Gambit, right, which is super, super popular. I think it's inspired a lot of people to pick chess back up. Certainly, I think it's inspired a lot of women to explore chess as well. And it couldn't be more timely, I would say, to have an abstract game like this come to market when there seems to be this interest, right, of kind of getting back into more strategic type of thinky kind of games. Did that play into it all, your decision to launch this now? The fact that we're seeing more of that kind of in the media?
My decision to launch it came actually before Queen's Gambit, but it definitely was related to my love of abstract games.
Yeah.
My preference really for that genre of games had a lot to do with my interest in it. At first, when we were developing it, we did try out various themes, like having, one side be white blood cells fighting off evil viruses, and you flipping them and seeing who's going to win, the virus or
that would be timely.
Blood cell, which would have been crazy had we gone through with that in this pandemic environment, because it was
CTOR, the COVID edition. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But now we decided to stay pure play abstract. We thought that is better for this game. And it makes it more serious game because it's a challenging game. It's a brainy kind of game, right?
Yeah.
So to then make it childlike or childish with cartoony stuff, and it didn't fit very well. So we dumped that idea.
So I just moved over to the actual Kickstarter page, and the one thing that kind of hits me is the graphics, right? And I mean, we can see the background behind you, a little bit of the ring from that again recent TV show where they have kind of like the clouds with the circle and got this kind
Stargate.
of heavenly, exactly like a Stargate.
Yeah.
The decision to change the fundamental look, what was that more to kind of North Americanize it, or?
Yeah, exactly. It was very plain in its original design
Yeah.
and functional for sure. But we decided that we wanted something a little jazzier, something a little bit more art creative. And that has a lot to do with the fact that we go with very unique or very standout type art in all our games here at Analog Game Studios.
Now, and I noticed like you've moved to like some like past, like the board looks beautiful. I mean, with the pastels and so forth. Now, I noticed that you kind of have your core, for people that are listening, I'll try to explain what the people who are watching are seeing. But you have kind of the core center of the board, which is kind of like a traditional kind of, lack of a better word, checkerboard grid. But then you've got these kind of colored bands that go kind of the outer two borders around the board. What's the significance of that? I was trying to kind of get my head around that when I was, digging into the game.
Okay. Very simply, when you look at the board, and actually if you want to show it,
Yeah, it's showing right now. Yeah.
or okay, I've got a version of it, but I don't know if it'll show up. No, it doesn't. What's going on is the board is actually the portion of those squares that are within the white band.
Yep.
So this outer group of squares are just marker squares. They're just there to position a play piece so that it marks the fact that it's on both sides. It's on the board, on the other side of the board, but then beware, because it's also going to have an impact on the left or right side of the board, as the case may be. So the outside rim, just marking tokens to mark off that that's the transition point.
And so when I was looking at kind of how you play, the core mechanic, I guess, is you're surrounding your players' rings with, I guess, 5 or more rings that's surrounded. Then you can then flip the ring over, and I guess it then becomes part of your color. A bit of like an Othello or reversey kind of, flip. But it's a lot more complicated than that, right? So you've got not just kind of getting on either side of that player piece, but you're actually having to surround the player piece. And then I was reading somewhere that you can bring a piece in from another side of the board. Like, how does that work?
Well, that is the nature of this torus, this donut shape, is that it's you're going around continuously, and you can move your pieces. There are movement operations.
Yeah.
So unlike the reversey or the Othello, there's a lot more to it than just surrounding your piece by placing a piece. Yes, that's important. And if your 5 of your colors touches a square that your opponent is on, that's when you flip, which is hard to do, actually. It's tricky. You're also laying 2 pieces at the time. And after laying 2, if you do flip, good, but you can also now move 2 pieces. And when you move them, that can cause a flip.
That's interesting,
too. And then the other 2 migration modes, where you can say you have a group of 3 pieces in a row. You can move them left or right along their axis, for instance.
And I noticed, and again, the screen, you can't see it, but the people at home can see this, is that it appears that you can move like a group, like, so can you move like a group of colors? So if you have like, say, 4 together, you can move that whole block of 4. You can shift around the board.
Yeah, that's the migration operation. Exactly.
And is it migrate or place, or can you do both on the same turn?
Well, in 2-player mode, you're going to be doing both if you wish. You don't have to migrate, but if you wish, you can. In solo mode, 1 operation at a time. So you're going back and forth in solo mode.
Gotcha. So I'm going to just take this off the screen that people are looking at home. We just got to the solo mode, and this makes my brain hurt when I was watching the videos. Explain how this solo mode works. It's like a right brain versus a left. Like you're actually playing against yourself, right? Is that correct?
Yeah. What you're doing is you're playing your right intuitive brain against your left logical brain. There's a lovely video in the review section in which it's Vince of Toronto Gamers does a great job about promoting this idea that, board games, we all think of them as you need to apply logical reasoning, logical decision making. But he feels that no, it's a fallacy. That's not really what actually happens. Usually we make an instant decision. We decide, I want to go after that green square because, I don't know, I like green, or I think that this is going to be a better position for my play pieces. And so that emotional intelligence and emotional decision making is far more prevalent. So Vince also then points out the fact about the solo mode version of this game, that you can actually sharpen and train and exercise and improve your intuitive by playing the solo mode. And the mechanics for how it works is very simple. You're going to be using a sand timer every time you're playing, right? So in 2-player mode, use 2 30-second sand timers because you don't want analysis paralysis taking over and ruining the game, right? In playtesting, we found that certain people have that issue, and so we had to introduce the sand timer. But then there's one sand timer that's 10 seconds. So when you play yourself, you're playing the 30-second and the 10-second sand timer.
Okay.
So you'll pick the 30-second sand timer, say for the yellow color, and we've identified, in this case, the red one for, as the blue one in solo mode, 10 seconds. So you've got to make a decision much faster in the 10-second sand timer case. That's your intuitive at work. That's your right brain going, well, crap, I got 10 seconds, I got to make a move, and you make it. And, whatever it is, it might be a bad one, it might be a good one, but your logical then comes back and tries to figure out in 30 seconds a better move. Now, I played it a few times in the solo mode, and my logical was generally better, but I found also more and more that I played, my intuitive got better. I improved my quick thinking, honing and accelerating my thinking speed, as it were. So that's why it's a brain game for people who want to train up their intuitive in solo mode.
Sounds like a great way to kind of exercise the brain too, right? Like I look at someone like my father who, taught me chess when I was very, very young and, played it my whole life, stopped playing it again because of the time, right? Sitting down for a game for an hour and a half, a game of chess was just something that a lot of people don't do now. And that was kind of the way it was done back when I learned. A timer certainly helps, I guess, speed things up. But someone like that who's starting to age and needs to exercise their brain, maybe lives on their own or needs something to kind of keep themselves stimulated. He does a lot of online chess, but something like this would, I think, really help somebody like him as well, kind of get back into the brain challenge of it.
The brain gym.
The brain gym. Yeah, it's a better way of putting it, actually. Brain gym is exactly what I was trying to say. So what I want to get my head around, though, is in the solo variant, are you playing to win? Like, are you trying to get one color versus the other? Like, I'm trying to get my head around that. How does that work? How does the solo variants, like I understand the two sides. So one side's playing, like, say, red. I think it's a red and yellow, right? And the other one's playing the other color. And it's the same rules you would have if you're playing, against a person. I mean, you're playing against yourself, so you always win? Or is it based on trying to get one color versus the other? Walk us through that.
Well, certainly you as a player will always win a solo game. which side of your brain is actually winning? So you're playing your left brain against your right brain in this situation.
So you're trying to outdo yourself? Is that what you're trying to do? So on the one side, you're like, okay, I want to get as many black or as many like red as I can, and then the other side I'm trying to get as many yellow. Wouldn't your brain automatically lean towards a positive outcome on one side or the other? Or is that the whole point? Is that the way Dr. Braun has structured these timers, it kind of almost forces a separation in your brain's thinking ability and actually creates almost two thinking machines?
If you have more time to look at a problem, come up with a strategy to solve that problem, you're going to have time to analyze. You're going to have time to consider different options. So from that, even if you consider 3 different options, you're going to pick the best one.
Mm-hmm.
That is analytical decision making. If you don't have the time, you just got to go, I think this one's the right one. It looks right to me. I'm making this decision now. Boom, done. So yeah, you're trying to hone and sharpen your intuitive decision making, the emotional intelligence in you, which actually we use more than we do our logical decision making on a daily basis. But you're trying to exercise it, kind of cognitive exercise, if you will.
Yeah. And then the decision to do the 2-player and solo versus like the, for lack of a better word, pimped out version, which is the CTOR, which gets into teams and all this other kind of stuff. What was the decision on your end to do that? Was it to then plan maybe a sequel where then you have the larger version, or where were you going with that?
We wanted a game that was inexpensive to produce and low price to buy. We wanted a game that would also be very playable and acceptable into families.
Mm-hmm.
Casual gamers would get introduced to it. When you go through the rules, you'll notice that, yeah, there's actually 4 operations, but really we encourage you to just start with the basic game of laying 2 pieces and flipping. Mm-hmm. Just start that way and build your way up to the more advanced form of the game. And so for that reason, team playing didn't seem to match up with the target market that we were looking for. Yeah.
Gotcha. And then talk to me a little bit about the components. So the rings themselves, are they punch outs, or what are the rings made of?
Yeah. 2.5 millimeter punch outs. We'd like to actually go to 3 because they would be super nice and easy to flip over and
sure,
just tangibly nicer. And I think that's very possible that we would do that rather. We looked into kind of the Azul plastic,
like tiles, yeah,
pieces, or even Othello has those plastic black and white, right?
Yeah.
That's nice, but it is a lot more costly. So if we ever want to get there, that means a different price point. That means a different game, really, and different production. So for now, punch boards, and they look like little donuts.
Yeah, they do.
Like little lifesavers, don't they?
You get hungry while playing the game.
Yeah. Edible game. Yeah.
And in terms of getting this out, getting the message out, has there been have you approached schools? I know right now with the lockdowns and things like that, it's very difficult to really reach out to anybody other than virtually. But is that part of kind of the go forward plan to try to get this kind of baked into some schools and get kids putting their electronics down and get them thinking strategy?
Dr. Braun actually has done that with his CTOR game, yes. Mm-hmm. And he has sponsored and hosted championships in which schools came together and played and won prizes. But we have not been able to obviously approach schools in the last year and a half. You're right. It's been a real bummer from that point of view.
Yeah, it's been kind of crazy. What are some of the other things you've done or you're planning to do? Again, when I think of a game like this, which I've personally backed it, just I'll put that out there too. I've personally backed this game because I like these kind of games, so I can't wait to get my copy. But I look at an abstract game, and then I look at the Kickstarter environment, which is loaded with plastic crack, right? Like the minis. It's loaded with a lot of character art. Now we're starting to see a lot more like card games with character art, and, stories and things like that. How do you kind of pull yourself, away from that pack and get to people with an abstract game, given that it seems to be leaning that way?
Mm-hmm. So let me start off first of all by telling you that all games are abstract. Every game ever created is abstract by definition, right?
Yeah.
It just depends on whether it's got a theme to it or what the decoration is, but they're all abstract ultimately.
Sure.
Now, if you could imagine that there are degrees of abstraction, well, sure, there are, right? And ours is a very high degree abstract game, but there is a huge core of people who just love abstract games. And when they heard about our game coming out, Torus, they got in touch with us. They messaged us and said, finally, an abstract game. This looks really amazing. I'm backing it. I like it. I can't wait to, play this.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a smaller market segment, but it is a very hardcore and underserved market segment that feels, we want more abstract games, actually. So that's my answer to the abstract nature of it.
I certainly think tournament-based games I like, right? So that's kind of in my wheelhouse. And, people that know me know that, my co-designer on a lot of our games is my brother. And he and I are very competitive with each other. So typically if we're playing a game, and it could be something as simple as Monopoly Deal, right? But we will play usually 3, 4, 5, 7 games because you constantly have that, okay, let's do like a best of 3 or let's do a best of 5. And, I think that for me, it's refreshing to see games in the ecosphere of games because there's a lot of games out there and there's something for everybody. But it's great to see new games like this, right? I'm going to call it abstract because that's the category it'd fall under. But like new abstract type games don't come along very often. And certainly one that has the science behind it that this does, Dr. Braun. Certainly Russia's very well known for chess. And, I think that's a testament to, culturally the types of games that kind of are birthed in that country. And I think this one's going to be awesome. I can't wait to see it. So where are you going from here? Like you are a publisher. It seems like you're cranking out a different game every couple months, but is there something else you have coming down the pipe or what's next on the docket for you?
We always have about 4 or 5 games in the pipeline in various stages of development.
Yeah.
We have slowed down a bit lately because it's impossible to do playtesting of a nature that we want.
Yeah.
So the playtesting that we like to do is to see how people are interacting with each other and with the game, not necessarily just to see if the game works or broken or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? That's really critical. But Yacht Race is still on our docket as a game that is awesome, and it is a republication as well, like Torus actually, back from 1960s that we've just upgraded. And then a local Toronto game designer has a lovely little game. There are fish involved. Imagine Stratego, but there are fish. So the smallest fish can kill the biggest fish by poisoning it. And then there are certain other fish that are just small but worth more, so you got to protect them more. And so you're developing the school on a hexagon, on these hex spaces.
Oh, that's cool.
And trying to be the one who prevails. The deeper you go in the water, those are worth more hex points, as it were, too. So that's another one that we have coming. And then, a few others that are one super secret one, but I'm very excited about it because it involves a very famous game designer from Europe.
Oh, wow.
So, we hope.
That's exciting. And so your next game that's coming, when is, have you set a timeline for that yet? Like, is this like a fall launch, or we're talking like maybe next winter, or kind of what's the schedule?
The upgrades can probably go in the fall. Yeah.
Got it.
It's ready. All the art is pretty much done. It's good, and it doesn't need to be play tested. It works. You know? So that can go anytime. And then the fish one, Big Fish, Small Fish is its working title for now, could then go early in the year next year.
Oh, that's cool. Richard, it is always awesome having you on the podcast. I learn something new every single time. I wish you all the best with Torus. I can't wait to get my copy, and you take care.
You too. Thanks. Cheers.
All right. Cheers. This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast, hosted by James Staley, produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply join the Facebook group Board Game Binge, and you'll get access to live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. I can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.